Okay, perfect. So now I've got my comments up. Good morning, Carmen Marie. She's watching on the Facebook page. And she comments, hello, yes, you are live. Happy Friday. It's August 9th, 2019. And today we're going to talk about how to structure and offer a support plan to your customers. Before we do, a couple of quick housekeeping things. New lessons were released on Bulletproof Bookkeeping this week. Including a 1-hour deep dive on the statement of cash flows, which actually goes through the balance sheet and the P&L and the statement of cash flows, 10 transactions, how each one of them impacts different major areas of the financial statements, and in my usual style, showing you exactly what goes where and what doesn't go where and why, so that after you're done, if you've ever seen me do the statement of cash flows before, this is the most thoroughly I've ever done it. And that's in the course. And I've released a couple of other lessons this week also on accounts receivable reports. And later today, I think I'm going to be publishing the lesson on accounts payable reports. So there's that. The other thing I mentioned in my email this week, which I'm going to be getting it onto a call later today with these guys from Jirav, is taking my cash flow projections process and moving it over into this product. As you can see here, what these guys allow you to do is, this is the first time I've seen an app like this that gives me the same flexibility I have when I'm doing it in a spreadsheet, where I can literally take any line item on the financial statements and write the formulas that I need to project the numbers for that particular line item and have it flow over to the proper line item in the projected financials. But of course, what's beautiful about this is it's live connected to your QuickBooks Online company, so that in real time, I can see month-to-date numbers compared with projected and see how close I'm coming. So I can nip things in the bud before it's too late, before the month is closed. So I'm very, very excited. I've been wanting to look at this product, and I've had several demos of it over the last year or so. But I'm really excited to dive deep into this product later today with these guys, and I have a feeling this is going to become a critical part of my sort of CFO plan offerings. And I might actually abandon my spreadsheet process as far as, offering the projections to clients, right? Makes the variance, and it makes it so that you don't have to do any updating. You just get right to the variance analysis. So that's also going on here in the Nerd Cave. Anyway.
Question for me today?
What?
Can you ask him a question for me today?
Can I, Giraffe, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Ask them if they're happy or sad that Toys R Us is coming back, because their logo is going to look the same.
I will. Is Toys R Us really coming back?
I heard.
Interesting. Same company or somebody else bought it?
I'm sure somebody else bought it.
Yeah. All right, then.
Also, I was going to mention, I Googled giraffe, like literally giraffe, and I did giraffe and cash flow. And then I found out that it's actually a spelling, a little bit of a play on the spelling. So you might share that with people, so in case they're looking for it, they can find it easily.
Yeah, it's spelled with a V.
But it's J-I-R-A-V.
Correct. Yep, J-I-R-A-V. Yep. Anyway, let's get into this. So, a little bit of background on this, right? We just gonna get my notes up here. So we're talking a lot in this industry about, strategic services and strategic planning and being more strategic with our clients, and strategic this and strategic that and strategic up your nose. So I'm constantly thinking about, the difference between all this chatter that you're hearing about it with very little about actually how to structure and offer, quote unquote, more strategic services. And this comes to mind as a great way to do it because, we're looking for newer, easier ways to offer services to clients, right? And getting away from the sort of mundane download code, reconcile, basic bookkeeping stuff, which of course should be substantially automated by now if you focus properly on the bank feed rules and set those up and take the time to do it. I do it now when we get a new client. I will obsessively, I'll create a rule for everything, because what happens after a couple of months of that is I don't really have to do any bookkeeping anymore. It's all really coded for me, just because I took the time up front to do that. Once a month, maybe I have a couple of one-offs to create more rules for. So again, we're looking for newer, easier, softer ways to offer services to clients, and really newer ways to offer our expertise. It doesn't always have to come in the form of actually doing the work, right? And I look a lot, and I know what the phrase I'm about to mention is going to get a lot of people cringing, right? But Intuit's QuickBooks Live was designed to pick up the clients that many of us don't want, right? They're the clients that aren't really ready for the services that we offer. That's who they're targeting with that service. And these clients don't have the perception that they need accounting and bookkeeping services, not the kind that any of you provide anyway. But they need something, right? They need help. So Intuit created QuickBooks Live, and their idea was, let's get these companies ready so that when and as they grow, they'll be ready for you guys, right? That was literally their intent with this product. And this would hopefully prepare clients, like I said, for when they are ready for the next level, which would be your services. And a lot of potential clients out there just need some help. They can't afford a full-time bookkeeper or even a part-time one. You know, it's a small business. They need to do their own books, but they do need questions answered. And then there's the example that actually is the reason why we're sitting here talking about this today, which in my own experience is a larger company that has their own bookkeeping staff that doesn't need me doing anything for them, but they have questions. You know, recently they had a question, they had to tweak their invoice template. They're in desktop using Right Networks, which by the way, I was very impressed with. I hadn't looked at a hosted solution in a while for desktop QuickBooks, and they use Right Networks, and I actually zoomed in with them. They were logged into Right Networks, and the resolution was great. I haven't seen it look that good in the past when I looked at a hosted solution. So kudos to Right Networks. It looked really good. And from what I've seen, they're really doing a lot to kind of step up their service. So,
It's better on QBox, right?
Sorry?
It's better on QBox, though, right?
You keep breaking up when you talk. I hear better QBox something. Okay, and now I think we killed him. Matthew, are you alive?
His mic isn't working well. He said it looks better on QBox, though, right?
Oh, well, QBox is a whole different kind of solution that serves a different purpose, right? I think that's important to be clear on. I know he was sort of joking around, but QBox is it's a different purpose. QBox has a networked option, which is great, but everybody has to be in the same physical location. But when you want to be able to access a desktop QuickBooks file and have people in different locations being able to access that, I love QBox, but QBox isn't equipped for that. That's when you will need something like a Right Networks to have people accessing it from remote locations in the cloud. So bigger companies might hire this company has hired me to do this support plan with them, which was what really inspired this, because I used to do it and then I kind of let it fizzle out. And then when this company came back to me, I said, you know what, this is a great service. I was offering it. It was starting to do well. I should really bring it back. And here we are. And what it really amounted to is they said, we've got our staff. We've got an AP person. We've got an AR person. We've got a director of finance and somebody else in the mix. So we have the people there to do the work, but they have questions sometimes, and they want somebody reliable and quick so they can get the answers, right? In other words, he doesn't want to have to spend hours on the phone with support to get answers, and especially because a lot of times the answers need to combine both the QuickBooks mechanics and the accounting knowledge. And when you call support, you're really calling to get support on the product. They can't really give you accounting advice, you know, or apply much in the way of accounting knowledge itself. So they need a resource that can provide both, and that's where I come in, and that's what I've started to offer, and that's what I want to kind of lay out there for all of you, because that's where your opportunity is. Now, from talking to a lot of people, I think a lot of you on the lower end bookkeeping services that you offer are probably charging less than or around $400 a month for a basic bookkeeping service, which, by the way, I'm going to share my screen here. If you take a look at QuickBooks Live, that's about what they're charging here. Let's see if they have the rates on their page. There it is. So yeah, right in that neighborhood, right? You can charge probably around the same, not have to do the bookkeeping work. And a lot of this support, by the way, is going to be similar. You know, you're going to have somebody at Intuit doing the books for you, and you can go in and get some basic questions answered. You don't have a dedicated person, and you don't have somebody who's going to give you a deep dive or go into Slack or give you screenshots or any of that. And that's where I think this service really comes in. I emailed about it this week. Connie, who is here with us today, sent me this reply, and it made me feel very good, frankly, that somebody else was on the same page with me about the value of offering a support plan. As you can see, what Connie said here is that she says, I compare your support plan to an insurance policy. You may not always need it, but knowing that you're there is worth the monthly fee. And by the way, I'm charging $500 a month for this service, right? You can, and it's the kind of thing that's going to be, the clients are going to use it more at first because the novelty of it, and then it's going to taper off and they're just going to use it when they really need it, right? But I would encourage you to encourage them to use it because, of course, the risk you run if they're not using it is that they end up wanting to cancel because they're not using it, right? And oftentimes if they're not using it, it's not because they don't need it, it's because they're just not remembering that you're there and available to support them. So what I plan to do with these is send these clients at least a monthly email reminding them that, hey, don't forget, you have a really valuable support service. If you've got questions, don't hesitate. Make sure you jump in and ask those questions, right? So essentially, for whatever you're charging for your lower end bookkeeping services, you could charge the same money and do a lot less work, right? So instead of downloading, coding, reconciling, which again should be automated now with a proper set of bank feed rules, just answer questions when they have them, right? And again, it will normally be more at first because of the novelty, but it should taper off and you should encourage it. It makes the service sticky when you encourage the use of it. And you don't have to respond instantly every time. I think that's one of the sort of mental traps we get caught up in is, I have to respond right away. No, you don't. Sometimes, if anything, the instant response can be, just to acknowledge that you got their question, you'll get back to them in a few hours, right? Then, of course, you need to make sure you get back to them in a few hours, but it's generally not that hard. I haven't found it, to be overwhelming in any way, shape, or form. So I found that as long as they know that you're aware that they need the help, they're okay. They can wait. They can move on to something else until you're ready to jump in and give them the help they're looking for. And this is so easy to do. It's so easy to do. So what do we need, right? We're looking at a tech stack for how to offer this service, right? This is how we package it. There's going to be just a few apps we're going to need. We definitely need a communications app. So, of course, I'm recommending Slack for that. But you can also use Microsoft Teams, right? There's a competitor Slack out there that's been there for a while that I've looked at on and off called River, spelled Ryvver, which is kind of a cool app. But over time, the reason I end up back on Slack every time I've tried that one is it gets a little clunky when you start getting a lot of data in there. I find it a little hard to find things. And that could also be a matter of you setting things up and structuring it, better than I did. So there's that. I was looking at Lacian, which is a very, very big software development company that creates a lot of productivity and project management software. They had created a product, I think it was last year, called Stride, which was also designed to compete directly with Slack. Guess who bought it? Slack. They're not dumb. They bought the competition, and they're using the IP from that to build better infrastructure into their own product, which is Slack. So Stride is no longer available in case you're familiar with that and thinking maybe you'd use it. You can't. Sorry. Just use Slack. It's the easiest one. It's the most widely used one. Although, and I know Matthew's going to be happy to hear me say this, Microsoft Teams has now surpassed Slack in terms of the number of users, right? So Microsoft Teams actually has more users than Slack right now, which there's some write-ups on Fortune and Inc. and other places discussing that Slack may have jumped the gun and rushed to push out some of their recent updates in order to maintain a competitive edge with Microsoft Teams. And there are problems. Slack went down for, get this, a whole hour. But everybody was up in arms, of course, as we often are when these things go down because we're so dependent upon them, right? QuickBooks Online goes down for an hour. People are screaming bloody murder. And the same happened here with... What?
Wouldn't it be great if we could get a Google product that...
I've thought of that. If Google made an app like this, it might be... Well, they do kind of, and they've had them, and they've actually been colossal failures. Google Hangouts.
Yeah,
What?
Hangouts is terrible.
Yeah, Hangouts was terrible, and they've had other ones. I can't remember the names now, but they've had other ones that were meant to be like chatty kind of communications apps. You could probably even use WhatsApp for something like this if you have clients that are inclined. WhatsApp has a web app that you can install and use on your desktop, which, by the way, is an important thing, I think, to mention, because I've noticed this a lot, especially with people that I've gotten into Slack with who are new to Slack. You may not realize it, you may not think about it, because when you first sign into Slack, it takes you into the browser, but don't use Slack. And the first rule of Slack is we don't use it in the browser, right? You must install the apps. The apps are a much better experience, and especially if you're going to be in multiple workspaces like you will be offering a service like this, because each client's going to get their own workspace. It doesn't work any other way, right? Each client has to get their own workspace in Slack so that you can organize the conversations, right? So just like I do when I'm using Slack with a bookkeeping client, I'll have a channel for banking, I'll have a channel for accounts payable, one for accounts receivable, one for sales tax, one for payroll. You know, I kind of run down the balance sheet and build my initial channels based on that structure. And then beyond that, we add what we need as we go, if and when and as the need arises. So definitely need a separate workspace for each client. Which is where WhatsApp would fail. There's no real way to create channels in WhatsApp. It's WhatsApp. The problem is it would be one sort of run-along conversation and one shared, conversation that you'd have in WhatsApp. So it's really not the best solution. But if for some reason you're just allergic to Slack, there are other options out there which you can explore. Just mind that structure. The point is to be able to organize the conversation so that you and or the client can easily reference things when you're looking for them later on. So there's that. And if you want to learn how to use Slack, we just recently did 2 Zoom deep dives on how to use Slack. So reach out to me if you want the quick link, but it's right on my website at NerdBuzz, and you have 2 hours of video instruction on how to use Slack right there. So Slack is definitely my recommended preferred communications app, but there are definitely others you can look into and use. Microsoft Teams would definitely be my second choice. I think it would be Matthew's first choice. Right, Matthew? You have your mic worked out yet?
He approves.
He approves. All right, so I guess we don't have good audio yet. So the next thing that I'm going to recommend to package this service is we should have some kind of a remote login app, such as Zoom, what I'm using now. And I want to be clear, this doesn't mean you're going to offer a 1-hour training with these clients. That's not what they're paying for. But a lot of times, and when I got the question from my client, who inspired all this recently about how to tweak their invoice template in QuickBooks Desktop, I said, you know what? Rather than going back and forth, it would take quite a few screenshots probably. I said, here's a Zoom link. Let's jump in. And in 5 minutes, I was able to get into his template remotely and make the change he needed. And at the same time, he got to see exactly how I made the change. And I explained to him what I was doing as I did it. And so I'll use a remote login app to take what would otherwise be 30 minutes of back and forth messages and screenshots and cut it down to 5 minutes. And the clients love that, right? They absolutely love that. And it really doesn't cost me anything extra to do it. Again, jump in Zoom, 5 minutes, share your screen. And sometimes this kind of blows me away when I think about it, because there I am. I'm logged in with him remotely via Zoom. He's logged into the right network server, sharing that screen. And I'm able to remotely access that and take control and do what we need to do. I love the productivity of that. I love the efficiency of that we can get things done that quickly. It would have taken a lot longer without Zoom. So again, don't panic and say, oh my God, if I start using Zoom in this service, I'm going to have to provide 5 hours of training every month. No, that's not how that works. And if the need arises such that they do need something more in-depth, then you offer that to them as an add-on. And you say, hey, I can log in with you remotely and spend an hour and train you on this, but that's not included in this support plan. That's an extra $250 or whatever you're inclined to charge for an hour of remote support like that, right? I charge $325 for that. So, and the client, again, there's such tremendous value in doing that for clients that they'll love it and they'll love you for it. They won't mind for a minute paying the money. So again, remote login app, use Zoom. You don't do 1-hour training sessions included in the support plan. You use it to jump on for 5 minutes here and there when it's more efficient to do so and get them the help that they need. Most of what you're going to do in Slack is going to be writing responses, and usually they're fairly quick, and shortening that sort of curve by using screenshots, which brings me to the next app in the tech stack, which is going to be Snagit. Right? There's lots of other tools. If you're using Microsoft OneNote has a screenshot tool, but there's nothing more powerful that I've used for taking screenshots than Snagit. The screenshot that I just showed you of Connie's email was done with Snagit. And I like to put that little effect on it. That's just my own little personal touch I like to do. I like to do little things like that that sort of have a way of, using the term very loosely, have a way of trademarking things that people start to recognize. Oh, that looks like a Seth thing. That's something Seth does, right? It becomes part of your branding when you can do things like that, that people start to recognize as something that sort of reeks of you, right? And again, I'm using the word reeks very loosely there. Hopefully you don't smell bad. Hopefully I don't smell bad. Anyway, so Snagit is one of my favorite tools in the world because it's just so easy. And I recently sort of upgraded to Snagit 2019. Okay, and I do this a lot now. So here's the stock photo I used for today's webinar, right? Wouldn't that be cool if you had like a control room like this to provide Slack support to all your clients? Imagine you build up a business like this with 500 clients paying you $100, or 500 client, or 100 clients paying you $500 a month, right? Tiffany, what does that add up to? What's 100 times 500? Like 50,000? I'm not good with numbers. I need spreadsheets for that.
It's a happy day.
What?
It's a happy day.
It's a happy day. Somebody check my math. I'm going to do it. I've got my.
600,000.
It's what?
It is 50,000.
It's 50,000 a month.
I thought you were joking around. Sorry.
No, I'm really not. I mean, I sort of do it, but I don't trust myself to. I always, I lose a zero somewhere in my brain, right? But anyway, yeah. If
I'll take that extra zero for you. That comes to 10 grand for me.
Perfect. So yeah, if I have 100 clients and that's paying 500 a month, and I believe it's scalable to the point where you could easily do that. I mean, certainly if you're getting those kind of fees, you can hire a team of people to provide the support. You just have to make sure they know how to answer the questions properly, right? And we have no shortage of people in our industry, in our community, that I'm sure would be only too happy to help support you on a plan like that because they have the knowledge, right? Anybody sitting here in this very Zoom right now could easily participate and help you offer a service like this. And we could do it for each other, right? End up creating a cooperative of really good QuickBooks accounting professionals who can do this. So when you're using Snagit, it's going to be really helpful because if I'm trying to answer somebody's question about QuickBooks Online, it's a lot easier to take a screenshot. And I love how easy it is to use Snagit's little tools to highlight things. So let's go to QBO Test Drive.
Is there a Snagit for a Mac?
I don't know. It's made by TechSmith, same people who make Camtasia. I would think maybe there is, but check and let me know.
Well, I was being a little lazy because I didn't find it right away, so I just thought I'd throw it out there in case anybody knows for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know for certain, but I know Camtasia comes from Mac, so I would just be surprised if Snagit didn't.
I had Camtasia for Mac, and then I passed it up for a little while, but yeah, I'll check.
Yeah. So, and there's lots of tools that help you take screenshots, but obviously I like Snagit because it makes it really easy to edit the images, right? So if somebody needs to know something simple on an invoice, obviously I'm just going to take a screenshot of the invoice, right? And let's say they want to know, hey, here's a classic question that comes up with people that are new. Hey, I don't see my customer drop down, right? I'm sorry, I'm in an invoice. Of course, there's no customer drop down there. The customer drop down is here. Sorry, never mind, bad example. But whatever it is about an invoice that you want to show them, with Snagit, you set up your keyboard shortcuts. Mine, I simply made it the print screen key on my keyboard. And so I tap that key, and then it lets me, obviously select the region, or I can just click anywhere on the screen and it will select the whole screen, and then I can resize very easily, to focus in on whatever I want to focus in on. I can certainly exclude my little sidebar there with that stuff, and I don't need my browser bookmark folders, right? And so you just go in and resize it. And then and by the way, this tool is really cool. So if you want to take a screenshot of something that requires a lot of scroll, that's where this tool comes in. You can click this and just scroll down, and then click for Snagit will give you like a stop button. And then when you're done scrolling, it will turn that into one long screenshot. So if you have a screen open that's bigger than you can fit on one screen at one time, you can still get a screenshot of that. And it does an amazing job of sort of putting it together. So another thing that I love. And you can record short videos with Snagit, which sometimes even better. You can just do a quick video of you showing where to click and what to do, right? And that will complement what you write in your written response in Slack. So real quick, I'll just take a simple screenshot. and then we'll bring it up here. Now, the first thing I do is resize it. These are often going to come out very large, right? If you try to post an image like this in Slack, it's going to be a big file, and it's going to take up a lot of space. Snagit is great about condensing these. What I find works really well, very consistently, is 1,200 pixels wide. And let it do what it needs to on the height there. Usually that's enough. Of course, you also want to keep in mind that you want to take the original screen clipping region, you want to keep that as small as you can, because that's going to help you get it closer. So because I look at this, and at 1200 by 616, it is a little small and tough to read, right? So I may want to go back at that point and say, well, what is it I'm really trying to show them? First of all, you can take this URL and copy and paste it into Slack so that when they click on it, make sure they're clear. They have to be logged into QBO. And you drop that link in Slack and say, click on this. It'll take you into a new invoice screen, right? And then let's go down here. And we'll take another screenshot, print screen. And let's say they're trying to understand how to fill it out. I can just take this region here, right? Take a much smaller region. That's going to render a lot better. Because let's say they're trying to understand how to use the product and service column and maybe how to add lines or something like that, right? So this comes in already a lot smaller. So when I change it to 1200, it's not too much different. What I'm frequently using is my arrows, right, to point things out. A lot of times that's all I need. Okay, then down here on effects, that's where I put in my little effect that I use on all my images now. Right, just click that. I've never seen a photo editing tool that was better than Snagit is about cropping an image. Usually with like other tools that I've used to crop images, it's like you get one shot to click and drag the region that you want to crop, and when you let go, that's it. That's what you're stuck with. Here, you get to resize it all day long until you're good and ready, and you hit the crop option, right? So if I'm trying to crop this further, it gives me some grid lines, which in this case makes it almost a little harder to read because the screenshot itself, you know, that screen in QuickBooks Online has its own grid lines. But either way, I could say, you know what? I really only need this region here. And so when I click and drag here, I can still resize it to say this is really all I need. And then click crop. It's just very forgiving. And then I can reapply my effect that I like. Okay, then I'm going to just say File, Save As, and I'm going to stick it in my downloads and say QBO, Invoice, Products, Crop. And I notice how deliberately I name this, and you're going to see why that comes in handy again later on. So over here, I've got my screenshot done. Very easy to post this into Slack. Let me open up a sample Slack workspace so I can show you, just for those who are still not very familiar with it. And let's go into my sample. So here's like a dummy account. So let's say this is well, it would be probably accounts receivable. That's where I would do anything related to invoicing, right? I'll open up the folder. And by the way, when you drag an image into Slack, it will give you an opportunity to write a comment as you're pasting the image in. So if I click and drag from Windows and let go, I can write the comment here. In fact, there's that URL, right? So this is how I would write the comment to the client. I would say log into QuickBooks Online and click this link to open a new invoice, right? And I might just bold that, highlight, Control B, and then this screenshot shows you where to add products and services. Go away, Sam. And add new lines if you need. Okay, and then click upload. And because I made the image nice and small and focused, it only takes 2 seconds to upload. I also happen to have very fast internet. I have a gig up and down. So that helps too if I'm uploading a larger file. But if you kind of follow this process for keeping the images nice and small, it should be no problem. They should upload very, very quickly. Right? I see, Matthew, I see you doing something, but I don't know if you're trying to, okay, never mind. I thought Matthew was trying to get my attention. Okay, so this is like 90% of the support service right here, right? You're going to be answering questions, writing, and then using screenshots to illustrate what you want them to do. And then if you do need to jump on Zoom with them, you know, while you're in the Zoom call, you're just going to click, there's an invite option, right? So if I just click the invite on this very Zoom that we're in right now, I can now paste that link in here and say, let's log in for 5 minutes. It will save time, right? And boom, because we're in an actual webinar, it takes them to the registration link. Normally, you would just start a meeting, not a webinar, and it would give them a link that would take them directly into the Zoom. So not a perfect example, but you get the gist of it. And you get the gist of how easy it is now to communicate. And sometimes in order to avoid cluttering up like an accounts receivable channel with Zoom links, what I'll do is I'll actually create a channel here like I've got in this example called meetings. And that's where I'll drop Zoom links, right? And then the key with Slack, because remember, you have to assume your clients may not know how to use Slack that well, especially in the beginning, is if I do it this way, if I drop the link in here, what I'd be inclined to do is then go back to accounts receivable and say, see hashtag meetings channel for a link to log in with me, right? And that way, notice it's linked, so they can click on that, and it takes them right over to the meetings channel. So you're using what I went over the last couple of weeks in Slack will help you. If you learn that stuff navigationally, it will help you make this whole process a lot more efficient and a lot easier to work with your client on offering this kind of service.
I just, I posted a link to download. I actually just, while you were doing that, I downloaded the Snagit on my Mac. So it's available for a 15-day trial.
Perfect. So they do have a version for Mac. Beautiful. Where did my notes go? There we are. Let me check Facebook. Any questions so far? Carmen had confirmed in Facebook also that Snagit works on Mac. It's $49, she says.
Definitely worth it, Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to sort of plan on adding things up for you as in terms of what the cost is, but the cheapest version of Zoom is, what is it, like $40 a month or something, right? So your first support client more than pays for that. Snagit, I think I paid like $40 for, you know, and that's permanent unless I want to upgrade it every year, right? Also very inexpensive software.
I pay $15 a month for Zoom.
15.
Okay, so even better. I pay like $85 because I've got the webinar product, right? So that you end up paying for the basic plus the webinar, it adds up to $85. So, yep. So, and I'm looking at the Facebook feed. Diane Muller says she's been offering this exact service for a long time. So she loves this topic. Sarah Laidlaw says I'm about to drive, so I can listen. I wish I could watch. Brad says you're not missing much on the visuals. Thanks, Brad. I guess that was maybe before I started sharing my screen. Anyway, Larry says too many script kiddies on WhatsApp. Anyway, what's next? No questions so far. Everybody's good. Everybody's clear. Screenshots. So the only other, I mean, that's the service right there. That's everything you need to do this is right there. Let me show you how I set this up. Okay, on my website. Now, of course, I've moved things over to Kajabi for my new website platform. So this is a little different. If you're using something like WordPress, then you'll want like WooCommerce subscriptions or something, right? You want something that you don't want to have to invoice them every month and then chase them to make sure they've paid your invoice, right? That's going to devalue this service from your end of things because the idea is just to spend time supporting them, not to spend time chasing them to get paid, right? So you really want to do something like this on a true subscription. ChargeOver is a great app that works with QBO that will let you do subscriptions. So that's another option. You can have them set it up through there. If we're using Kajabi, Kajabi, of course, has its own whole built-in engine for exactly this kind of thing. So let me go into my Kajabi. I'm going to take this off screen for a second because as I log in, there may be confidential information. I want to make sure that's not exposed. And I've got to log in because I remembered to clear my cache this morning to make sure I wouldn't have problems going live on Facebook.
Also, I was going to put out there, if anybody wants to practice with someone before they work with their client, I'm happy to be a guinea pig to help be the in case you're interested.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Kelly. So in Kajabi, you have products and offers. And what you'll do is, and I can only kind of reveal, well, you know what? Screw it. So you'll see how much money I've made on Kajabi so far. Maybe that'll inspire and motivate you. But I click add a new offer.
Well, are you trying to share your screen? Because I'm on my
thank you, Greg. Yep. See, that's why I need Greg in my life, because he always reminds me when I've turned my screen sharing off to turn it back on. Okay, so here's the screen. Basically, when you log in, you'll see this. You click offers, and at the top right was add a new offer. So now you don't get to see how much money I made. And I'm going to title this, and I'm going to call it something like Slack support plan or monthly support plan, right? Yeah. And watch how easy this is in Kajabi. This is why I think it's worth it to start thinking about moving to Kajabi. Even if your whole site's in WordPress, this is what I've been doing, is moving my whole website platform over to Kajabi. So, and then offers can either be assigned to products or not. In this case, I don't need it assigned to a product. I just need to create an offer so I can capture a monthly subscription amount. So if it's $500 a month, initially all you can do is just a straight rate until you save it. Okay, and then you can edit the price further. And what I love about Kajabi is it gives you so many options. It covers everything you could need, right? I can make it free. I can make it a one-time payment. I can do a series of payments, right? Or a recurring subscription right across the top. 500 is the payment amount, right? Build a customer every month. If I want to, I can charge them a setup fee. Maybe I want to charge them $100 for the time I have to spend setting up the Slack workspace. I don't bother. I think $500 a month is going to cover it, right? I can do a trial period and say, let's try it for 7 days, right? And it'll still capture their credit card information. If they don't cancel in 7 days, they start getting charged, right? That's a good way to try and get people in to reverse the risk, right? If you're, reaching out to people who don't really know you. A trial period is a great way to get people to get in and try it, and then of course you blow them away and they end up being more than happy to continue and keep paying. With Kajabi you can link up Stripe and PayPal as payment methods, which works great for most of our purposes, and that's about all you'd need to do. And then click save rather, and then over here you'll write up a little description. I can add a pretty image here, right? And just because this is how it'll be presented in your shopping cart. And then you go to, this is how the product will be presented on a page where you would kind of display the product as an offer. And then you edit the checkout to go in. And so if they click on the product and say, yeah, I'm interested, then this is kind of what the checkout page looks like. And this is how easy it is to set up, right? So it grabs the title over here. It gives me some sort of a placeholder text, and it gives you the suggestions, like insert a call to action. This is what I love about Kajabi too. They really help you with the marketing stuff. They kind of tell you exactly what to do here, right? Insert a call to action statement that'll encourage them to purchase, right? Because they're at this point, they're obviously very close to maybe really wanting to check out, but they may still be a little hesitant. This is where you get that opportunity to kind of push them that little bit further over the edge so that they take the plunge and set up the plan with you and get started, right? This is that last moment where people can be a little hesitant. So this is your chance. And then you just click in here on the left and you just rewrite the copy to whatever it says. Remind them 24/7 support access, ask all the questions you want, whatever. You can put in language. I can even insert an image, and an image is very visual, like money back guarantee, big red ribbon, right? I have a stock image that I found that I'm using for that. Let me go into OneNote and search for that. here. So I found this one. I think it was on Pexels or something. It may have been Dreams Time. So I just carve out. I like the red one because it stands out better than the green one. And I might stick an image like that here at the bottom so that if they cancel within the first month, I'll refund their money. You know, I'm that confident that they're going to love the service that they're not going to want to do that, right? So things like that help people feel more comfortable taking the pledge and clicking here where it says complete my purchase, right? But and again, you're seeing, this is why I love Kajabi. It makes this so easy to do. So that's how you get set up to collect the payments. If you're in WordPress, you'll need something that does subscriptions, or the other choice, as I mentioned, is you can use something like ChargeOver with QBO, and you'll go in and you'll set the subscription, send them the link that they need to click over and establish their monthly subscription with you. But
so I got a couple of questions for you, Seth.
Yeah, of course.
First of all, do you know if this works for Canada? Like, was Canadian an option for the currency?
For Kajabi, it might be based on your IP address that Canadian currency would be an option in Kajabi. I would have to believe they're in Canada because they seem to be all over the world, literally. I mean, in the Kajabi Facebook support group, which I spend a lot of time in these days, because I learned so much just by reading the answers to other people's questions. I get so many ideas, right?
Yeah.
But check with them. Their support's amazing, and I would just reach out to them on their website and confirm.
Okay.
I'd be very surprised if they don't support Canada.
And then the other question is, how do you then get this info? Is there an integration with, what do you use for your accounting system? Are you using QBO or QB?
Yeah, I'm in QuickBooks Online.
And then, so how is that integrating your money?
So I have a Zap that every time somebody purchases something on Kajabi, it adds the sales receipt into QuickBooks Online and deposits it into a Kajabi clearing account, because then I have to sort out whether it was Stripe or PayPal and take it from Kajabi clearing into the corresponding payment clearing account, so I can reconcile Stripe or PayPal, and then of course from there it gets into my bank account. So that's the accounting process I've set up on this. I wish there was a way, unfortunately in the Zapier Kajabi API connection, there's no way to access the payment method. Otherwise I would drop it directly into the corresponding payment clearing. They haven't given you that yet, but they're constantly working on this product. So, it's kind of like what QBO always tells you. If you give them the feedback, it's that much more likely they'll make the changes you're looking for. So, is that it? Cool. So, whatever you use, I don't care if it's Kajabi or something else, just make sure you get a subscription set up. You do not want to be chasing people for their money on this, right? That's not the plan. The plan is to be spending your time providing them with support, and that's important.
In QBO, Seth, what could work is just a recurring sales receipt, and then that's automated in that way. You
can. My only concern with that is when they cancel, then you have to remember to cancel the recurring sales receipt. And if you have 100 clients in this, which hopefully we all will soon, that gets clunky to me. So, but you're right. That would work perfectly, especially in the beginning.
I'm in a small, I would think about starting with a smaller group. So for me, that would work, but you're right.
My thinking is always automate this as much as I can, right? So, but absolutely. Excellent point. Okay. Last thing, and I mentioned earlier when I showed you the screenshot that I took, is another app you can add into the mix with this is going to be Airtable, right? Now, what you can do while you're answering questions in Slack, and this is purely optional, but the thought occurred to me that this might prove to evolve into a really cool resource, is you can start logging the frequently asked questions and the screenshots that go with them in an Airtable database. And with Airtable, you can log topics and things to make it that much easier to reference topics and the answers to those questions. And as I showed you recently in Slack, if we're doing something like this, you can even link to this particular message in Slack. So this would be for something you're building specific to that client. But you could build a broader database, because a lot of these screenshots are going to be generic, right? They're going to be from a sample or a blank screen. They're not going to have client-specific information in them. So you can use them to build a broader frequently asked fact database. And that way, as you start to get asked some of the same questions of different clients on different of these Slack workspaces, you can actually reference your Airtable fact database and drop the link to something from Airtable right into here, a view-only link. So I don't have time to get too deep into how to set that up, but the basic gist of it with something like this might be as follows. I'll go into Airtable, And I haven't even begun to build this yet. It was just a thought I had this morning as I was sort of preparing. So let's go add a base here, and we'll start from scratch. And we'll call it Slack support FAQ. Frequently asked questions. You know, for the longest time, I had no idea what FAQ stood for, and I was too embarrassed to ask people. All right, so real quick, I have an attachment that we just did, so I can click right in here onto the attachments. I'm going to grab that screenshot. It'll upload, and you want to name these. That's why you want to name these the way I named that one. You see how it's got that there's no spaces, there's dashes in between each word. There's a number of reasons for this. Generally speaking, when you're going to put an image on the web, this is a really good thing to do. Because if you're trying to link to that image and you put it in there with spaces in the title, the browsers are going to put that %20 into each space in the title. And that just makes the link clunky and messy, and oftentimes it causes it to break when you're pasting it somewhere. So really good practice to make sure there's no spaces in the title of your images. And using a dash is perfect because it also makes it very easy to read and understand what we're going to be looking at here, right? So for the name, you might put, the general topic that this screenshot was meant to cover, which could be how to access or how to invoice products and services, right? Products/services and add lines, right? But then I might put in another multi-select kind of field, right? I'll call it topics. And then what I'll do here is you can just start adding stuff to something like this on the fly. So I would say invoice accounts receivable, products, services, right? You can go on, and you can spell it correctly too. You double click the column header, and it gives you the options. You can click in there to edit them. You can also alphabetize them right here. So if you are just kind of picking from the list later, easy enough to do by clicking on the little plus sign. And I'm using all the options, so there's nothing for me to find here, obviously. On a new line, if I click this, it gives me the list, right? And you can also, if you have the paid version, you have more to do with the color palettes here, so you can kind of color code them a little better. So this is just to give you a very quick sort of sketch of how you could begin to build a FAQ database in Airtable based off of the services that you're offering with Slack as a support plan, so that you can build and just make sure it's all generic, because then all I have to do is use a shared link for this database, and then I can teach my clients or record a quick video explaining how to filter it or group it in that shared view. And so this is an additional resource you can build over time off of what so you're now getting paid $500 per month per client to build an incredibly valuable resource that you can also charge for separately and or just include it as a big added value to the very support plan that you're offering already. So that was the other thought I had, that it was one of those optional things. If I had time at the end, I would share it, and I did. So I did. All right, any questions? I'm curious, how many of you feel like $500 a month is a fair fee to charge for this? All right, I got some thumbs up. You can feel free to unmute and talk to me. I'm not bad to talk to sometimes. So good. Everybody like this? This is good. Let's go to Facebook. So Adam in Facebook is commenting. He says, support plans, is this general monthly accounting support? So to me, it's 24/7, 365 support. That's the whole idea, is they can go in there anytime, ask the questions. I can get back to them. Usually what I do is I guarantee them a response within 1 business day, right? That gives me the weekends off if I want them. I usually don't take weekends off, but I know a lot of you like to. I actually have so much respect for that. I met a bookkeeper not long ago. She just joined 97 and up, but she hasn't actually jumped in on any of the calls yet. But I met her teaching Excel at Santa Monica College, and I've noticed just in my communications with her that she does not respond to emails on the weekends. And not only doesn't that bother me, I have so much respect for that. I'm like, I need to learn from her to do that, to just like take the weekends off and get some downtime and decompress, right? We all could learn from that. A lot of you probably already do it. I'm terrible because I'm just like, I want more and more. I just want to keep doing more. I never want to stop.
I have a question.
No questions for you, Dennis.
Maybe I had missed it, but who's actually doing the accounting? Are they using like QuickBooks Live?
Somebody else is doing the accounting, but I'm glad you brought that up because this was another sort of afterthought that occurred to me this morning as I was thinking about this. So how's this for a plan? You get them in on a support plan like this, right? Let's say it's what I believe the two typical use cases are going to be for this are it's a one-person shop and they're doing their own bookkeeping because they can't already afford the bookkeeping service, right? The other use case is, like I said, my client that I just put into this, where they have a whole team of people. They don't need the accounting work done. They just need a resource that those team members can ask questions of, right? So let's go with the first use case, right? Solopreneur, needs a little bit of support, needs help, really sees the value in having somebody who's very experienced be able to provide them with prompt answers that can address both the product and the accounting knowledge, right? Charging them $500 a month for that. The company grows. They say, you know what? This support plan has been amazing. You clearly know what you're doing. What would it cost to have you do the bookkeeping for me, right? And now we start having that value conversation in which I would be inclined to say to them, look, I'd be happy to do the bookkeeping for you. Assuming we're just doing the basic bookkeeping, right? We're not invoicing for you and we're not paying your bills. I can still offer you the support plan for those parts that you'll still need help with because you're still doing some of the accounting cycle. And for another $500 a month, I'll do the very basic bookkeeping service. Now I'm getting $1,000 a month from them. Let's say they come back to you and say, you know what, I would like you to pay my bills for me. Great, that's another $500 a month. Now we're at $1,500 a month in accounting fees to provide support plus all the bookkeeping services, right? It's a great way to start off simple and add value. Adam's in the Facebook feed saying, I already do that. Without the support, they get one email per month. However, recently I built it into monthly accounting costs instead of doing add-on. See, and that I like. I hate the idea of saying, well, you have one email a month, because it's like, all right, now you have to start defining what constitutes an email. Does this email count? Does that email count? You know, and I don't want to have to keep track of how many emails they've sent me, right? I don't want to have to keep track of anything. I want it simple so I can just show up and provide the service. So to me, this is the way to do it. Include it in your monthly fee. That's a great value add, but make sure it's properly built into your monthly fee. Not that you're taking what you're already charging them to just do the bookkeeping and saying, yeah, let's throw this in and include it. It's a lot of value to throw in and include without charging them something more, right? The other option, again, is the bigger company, like I said, they're not going to need my help, but they may need one-on-one, deeper dive training. They've already indicated to me that they want help implementing Bill.com and they want help implementing something else. I forget what the other thing was, but bottom line is this support plan creates a really nice avenue through which you can start to offer the one-on-one add-on, pay me for an hour of one-on-one remote support. I'll log in with you. In my case, every time they want that, they can pay $325 for a 1-hour session. Or, especially since there's clearly an ongoing relationship here, I always would encourage them and say, take a 5-hour plan with me. It's $1,500. It saves you a little money. And then we don't have to sit there fiddling around with you going and signing up for a session first. It's there. It's available for you to use, right? And then is Penny Lane still with us, or did she have to go? I think Penny's gone. Okay, so Penny and I were talking at the beginning. I want to show her, and I'm going to show all of you at some point, how I've automated that whole plan. I see now in the chat, Penny said, I have an appointment now.
I guess what I would ask is that it seems to me if a person can't afford to hire a bookkeeper, it might be a tough sell to pay $500 a month for you to help them with their bookkeeping. It seems like
you can certainly charge less than that. That's going to be up to you. For me, it's not worth my time for less than $500 a month. I'm too busy.
It seemed like maybe a more probable course of action be that they try QuickBooks Live are not satisfied with this.
Well, again, and the reason I brought up QuickBooks Live specifically is I think this is a better alternative for what they're already paying for QuickBooks Live, right? Because they can get direct and immediate and frankly more detailed support. And I don't think Intuit minds me saying that, because I talked with somebody from Intuit yesterday and had this very conversation, and what they told me was what I reflected to all of you at the beginning of the hour, is that their intention with QuickBooks Live was to grab the clients who wouldn't be inclined to hire you at this point because they're too small, and get them kind of into an environment where they have a good set of books, so that then they can come to you with hopefully a good set of books that you can then take over the books and charge them a proper monthly fee and take over their bookkeeping from there, right? Again, the price point's going to be entirely an individual choice on your part, what you're willing to do it for, frankly. I always say I love my friends Ron and Ed, and I love the value pricing concept. But at the end of the day, to me, pricing is all about supply and demand. If there's more demand for what I have to offer, I'm going to raise my rates and I'm going to charge more for it. And either they see the value or they don't. But the bottom line is, you've got to pay me enough to motivate me to get out of bed in the morning. Otherwise, I'm going back to sleep. And that's how it works.
One thing I thought of as well, Seth, is I know that client you mentioned, you said they're on desktop, I believe, but with the evolution of QBO, I think he could just be an ongoing process of keeping the client up to date with like what's available, because projects wasn't available before and now it is, and that offers like another alternative to like build out their structure of their bookkeeping, and add that on. So that's something important to think about too.
Yeah, and that's another thing you can sort of tout when you're offering the service is, hey, you know what, I've got my finger on the pulse of the latest and greatest stuff that's available that works with QBO. So in addition to the ongoing support, I'll also be able to keep you apprised of all of these developments and what new features or products that are out there that might be extra useful for you, right? It's a really good way to provide a high-value resource. And it's funny, Dennis, because going back to your question, and I know that's going to be a concern. But if people are about to pay $500 a month, or let's say $450 a month on average for QuickBooks Live, they can easily afford this. Charge the $450. Go look at QuickBooks Live's pricing, compete directly with QuickBooks Live, and charge their prices. Right? It's still, I think, more than fair value for what we're going to give them. And at the end of the day, pricing and getting people to sign up and getting them to perceive value is like 90 to 95% psychology. Right? Mm-hmm. It's weird, but they may not see the value in paying $500 a month for bookkeeping services, while they might see tremendous value in having an ongoing resource like this 24/7, 365 to give them the support so that they can be empowered to do it for themselves. Because this way, they're also learning how to do it themselves and not just paying somebody to do it for them, which oftentimes leaves a business owner feeling like they're driving blind. They don't know if you're doing a good job or not. They don't really have a true understanding of what you're doing or what the value is for that matter. Whereas if you're providing them essentially with coaching through a support plan like this, they get the best of all worlds, because now they get to do it, they get to understand it more deeply, and you get to provide them with the support so what's more valuable? Right? And again, it's always about painting the picture of what the value is and making sure that it's clear to them, right? That's the key. That's what's going to make the difference between somebody feeling like it's worth $500 a month versus not worth $500 a month, right? So, and if you have a smaller client base and smaller revenue, and smaller fees, if you're charging normally like $250 a month for a client, again, this service might work very well at $250 a month, right? You might find it very valuable even for you to offer it for half the money that I'm suggesting. It also depends on who your clients are, where you're located. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in one of the most expensive parts of the world to live in. So I charge a lot, because it costs me a lot to live here, right? These little stuffed animals behind me are expensive over here. They're a lot less expensive in Kansas or something. I kid, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We're just past the hour. So I'll have the recording of today's Zoom up on the website. I've been pretty good about getting these up within like 24 hours. I have somebody messaging me in the 97 and Up Slack asking if she missed my Zoom on providing the support plan. I guess the answer is yes. But the recording will be up tomorrow, and I am very accessible and available to answer any follow-up questions any of you may have. One last quick check on the Facebook feeds here to see if I missed anything. Sarah says, Cornerstone always know that they have a problem or that they should be asking a question. So does the support ever include a monthly review? Again, that's an individual choice if you want to include a monthly review for that. I might even say that for $500 a month, you can include an hour of online remote support, logged in with Zoom. For you, that might be worth it. For me, it's not, because for me, I already charge more than half of that for a single hour. But you can certainly do discounts on what you normally charge for an hour. with this, it's another added incentive. I do that with 97 and up, right? Any members of 97 and up can get a 1-hour session with me for $250 instead of $325, right? So that's certainly something you can do for people who are, always look for ways to reward people who support you. That's kind of my golden rule on this. If somebody's willing to spend $500 a month of their hard-earned money, do whatever you can to make it really valuable without going beyond what you're comfortable offering, right? Without going to a point where, what you don't want to do. The most important thing to avoid, I think, the most important place to avoid going to with something like this is where you start to get resentful because you are spending more of your time than you really care to for the amount that you're getting paid, right? That's when your service is having the opposite impact that it was supposed to. And that's why I always say charge what gets you excited to do the work. Because if I'm really excited to do the work that I'm doing because I'm getting paid really well for it, then I'm going to do the best damn job I can at that because I can't wait to get in and provide all the help I want because the client's taking really good care of me, and that makes me want to take really good care of them. The clients who give me a hard time about money, I don't want to deal with them. My interest in them starts waning quickly with the clients who give me a hard time about anything, even if it's justified. That's just a fact of life. It's basic psychology 101. If somebody's giving me a hard time, I don't want to deal with them. If somebody makes it really easy and pleasant for me to work with them, I will bend over backwards and do absolutely anything I can to make their lives the best I can possibly make them today. And that's the golden rule. So just make sure you structure your pricing and what you're offering in exchange for that value in such a way that you still feel really good about doing what you're doing for the money that you're getting paid. And that's one to grow on. I'm going to get out of here. I got to go. I got a call with my friends at Jirav, spelled Jirav, coming up in another hour, and I haven't had breakfast yet, so I got to go do that. Got to eat. Man's got to eat. I'll see you all. Go join Gina's Hangout later today, 2 o'clock, I think they joined initially, to chat about what they're going to chat about at 2:30. SBAA on Facebook, Small Business Accounting Advisors on Facebook. Go hang out with Gina and her friends. I would be there if I could. I'm usually busy at that hour, but one of these days I'm going to jump in there and surprise everyone. I'm going to be like, ha! So anyway, I will see you all around the web. And again, feel free to reach out to me if you have any follow-up questions, concerns, comments, feedback, even if you need a little therapy. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I'm willing to try.
Thank you, Seth.
You got it.